first time we've had you on the show, Amanda. I mean, it's just one of the worst stories we've ever covered, I think.
Oh, it's just terrible. As a parent and a grandmother myself, it's just, you know, unthinkable, isn't it, that it could happen to you? And you know, I know we were chatting earlier, and I think we focus on knife crime in cities where we need to think about it. It's happening everywhere. It's happening everywhere now. And I think, you know, we have to start looking at how we can prevent these. And my concern is that we run so many children's activities during the summer in community halls and leisure centres. And I think these buildings should have gate access, code access, where, you know, you have the code to get in. You can't just, nobody can walk in. And I know it's terrible that we have to live in a society like that, but we have to start looking at prevention to stop people being allowed to access, you know, these classes so freely and easily. And it's just awful, isn't it?
It's lovely being in a society where I think with this, the door was open because they need access to the loo, and maybe if a mum is late, she wants to come through. Albie, I don't know. What do you think?
It's an absolutely tragic story for two kids to lose their lives whilst attending a Taylor Swift dance camp in the middle of summer is just tragic. I feel awful for their families, and I feel awful for their friends and everyone that's had to go through this. I think Amanda is right when she talks about knife crime. Often we talk about it being something which affects people in the inner cities. Often people talk about it as a crime, particularly in the black community. Now, we don't know the ethnicity of the person who did this, but we do know that this was a 17-year-old boy from a nearby village to Southport, which is, of course, in Lancashire, in the northwest of England. This young man was born in Cardiff, so it would appear that he is British. There are a lot of wild conspiracy theories going on social media at the moment, and I think it's important that we stick to the facts. Now, on what we can do about...
Just before we do that, should we find out who he is, or do you think, well, at 17, there tends to be a sense that you know, they would tend not to give any identifying details or the name because they say it's a child?
There are important reasons why those rules are in place, and I am yet to see a reason why those rules should be taken out of place. Now, I understand there are strong feelings on this issue, but I do think in some cases, and maybe in this case, if someone is a minor, there are reasons why we don't reveal their identity. And I think it's important that we honour those, and not because we feel very strongly about something happening in the moment and the passion behind that, think, oh, let's get rid of all of these rules that are in place for a very good reason, because we feel so passionately about it now.
And I think in these cases, a judge can vary the rules, so we may well find out who they are. It's just the default position is we don't know. So let's see. But do get in touch with us if there's any way of preventing this without having all kids in lockdown whenever they're outside their own homes. We'd love to know what you think. 0207 862 2222 is our number. Let's speak to somebody from the area. This is Lee Walton, who owns the nearby Yates Motor Engineers. You saw the emergency response, Lee.
Yes, we saw it from our garage. Yeah, we saw the emergency vehicles, the helicopters. Yeah, it was, you know, before I knew anything, it was just, you know, you could tell something big had gone on. And then I heard from a parts delivery driver that some children had been injured in a stabbing attack, and it just got worse from there onwards, really, from when you start to tune into the news and hear that it's, you know, a lot of children. It was frightening, yeah.
Well, I don't know whether you saw the perpetrator either leave or arrive.
No, I didn't, no. You know, basically the road was shut very, very quickly, and I didn't have any idea what was going on other than, you know, lots of helicopters. That's what really alerted me. There was, you know, multiple air ambulances, and because they fly literally low over the garage and land in a field that's you know, probably half a mile away from here. So, you know, I've seen them before when you get bad accidents on the motorway and stuff. So, but to see that many, it just sort of really brought it home to you that you know, something big had you know, really tragic had happened.
What's the mood in the community today, Lee?
Quiet. really. A lot of my customers live on Hart Street. Thankfully, I've not heard, of anyone that I know, or any children that my friends know, or anything like that. It's so, but I've spoken to customers this morning that bring their vehicles in, and they're, just like everyone really, just numb, just shocked at what's happened, and again, why? People are just asking, what's the relevance? Why travel, a few miles from your house or wherever he was residing to come to this street to find a Taylor Swift dance class and do that? It just, I think everyone's just, desperate for answers, really.
Thank you.
It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Thank you, Lee Walton, very much for talking to us from Southport. Amanda, it's those pictures of mums arriving and not knowing if their child is okay. So painful to see.
It is, and you said you would question yourself why, these the outer school activities are so important to, not just for children, because they have to keep integrating with other children. We don't want them stuck in their rooms. What's going to happen? We're going to be too frightened to let them out of the house.
After the break, we'll take your calls on how this kind of attack can be stopped. What do you think can be done about this sort of knife crime, random attack on children? Give us a call now with your thoughts. 020. First, after the tragic Southport stabbing, how do we stop knife attacks from happening? 0207 862 2222 is the number. Maybe we can't, but we had to accept that might be a reality here. Among those paying tribute to the victims were the King and the Queen. They said they were profoundly shocked by the horrific incident. They expressed their heartfelt condolences, prayers and deepest sympathies to families and loved ones. Prime Minister Keir Starmer called the attack horrendous and deeply shocking and thanked emergency services for their swift response. And you saw earlier the front pages of the newspapers. I'll just show you here again. I mean, there's other stuff going on in the world, of course, but yesterday there was really only one story, wasn't there? There's anyone who's a parent, who's other family members, whoever you are, whether you're a child yourself, you're looking at this thinking, this has just come out of nowhere. Knife attack. A lot of people actually making the same comment here, that it was like a horror movie. So the word horror coming up again and again, and people describing the screams they heard and so on. David in Dorset, hi. Hi, David. No, not there. Okay, Barry in Lancashire.
Good morning.
Is there any way of stopping this, Barry?
As I was saying to your researcher previously, these things don't just happen overnight. The parents of these children must know that the company that the other children are keeping and the general behaviour must have some pointers to what they're doing.
Yep.
And if the parents aren't vigilant, the authorities have got to get involved.
This is the sort of the sentinel argument, which is that with every offender there is somebody who has a duty to watch them on behalf of the rest of us, and sometimes it's very unfair on the parents. This guy might have just suddenly gone crazy one morning. I don't know. Can you stop him getting a knife, Barry, or is that just impossible?
I'm a father of 7 children.
Yeah.
And growing up, I knew where they were, what they were doing, the friends they were keeping. And one particular day, one of the children's neighbours was playing on the park with an axe. One of my sons came round, told me what was going on. I went straight round to the park and took the axe off him and remonstrated his parents for this young child being allowed to get access to it. He was only about 9 at the time.
Good point. Good point.
But these things should be looked at properly. The children only go off the guidance of the parents, and if the parents are allowing it.
OK, Barry, thank you. Joining me now is Patrick Green, CEO of the Ben Kinsella Trust, an anti-knife crime charity. What do you make of this, Patrick?
I'm as shocked and appalled as everybody else is this morning. As I've still tried to comprehend what happened. Sadly, we've seen this very recently in Hainault in Essex, and another random attack in which a schoolboy lost his life, and I think back to Nottingham as well, where 2 students lost their life just to somebody who then went on the rampage with the large knife. It's all too common. Knife crime is one of the most pressing issues facing this country today. Yet, we never seem to be able to tackle it. And it's time that I think we start to treat knife crime with the complexity, as the complex problem it is, and start to approach it with a multifaceted approach about how we start to change mindsets around the idea that it's safe to carry a knife, take those who carry knives off our streets, make it more difficult to purchase knives. As you rightly say, something that we cannot make impossible. And also, that education and early prevention, hugely important contributing factor to lowering knife crime.
Albie?
Patrick, do we just have to accept in a society where everyone has knives in their houses that there is going to be a level of knife crime? And is there an acceptable level of knife crime that British society just has to accept?
No, we don't have to accept it. And, from the work that we do, and we're working with 8,000 children every year, I can tell you that knife crime is not inevitable. That many of the drivers, many of the risks you can identify very early on. Where you can work with young people, you can work with parents, you can change lives, and you can do that very effectively. The challenge is getting in earlier. There's too many young people who don't get the advantage of talking to a positive role model, don't get the advantage of having the right education, that they're self-educating on social media about how to protect themselves, getting all the wrong information. We don't do enough frontline talking to young people. I would urge parents today to sit down with the young people in their care and talk to them about how safe they feel, because they will be feeling very unsafe following this tragic incident, and help them understand the positive ways that they can keep themselves safe. Those conversations are hugely important. And, we don't identify mental health, early mental health needs of young people early enough, learning needs of young people early enough. We make it far too easy for gangs to exploit vulnerable young people because they're not getting the support they need. There's so much that needs to change, and needs to change quickly.
Thank you very much, Patrick Green. Ben Kinsella Trust is the charity. Angie in Essex, hello.
Oh, hello, Jeremy. First of all, my thoughts and sympathy go out to all affected in Southport. Yet again, I think the governments have got blood on their hands again.
Why is that,
Again.
Angie?
Because with the criminal justice system that they run, the sentences, once convicted, are too lenient and too soft.
I don't know. This is a 17-year-old. I'm not sure he's thinking, I will be arrested, charged, convicted, go to jail. He may not have any of those thoughts, Angie. He's gone out with a knife to hurt people, and that's for whatever reason, we don't know. I don't know whether you can put in a deterrent here unless you bring back the death penalty or something.
Well, if it is him, and if he is convicted, he's too young to go into the mainstream prison. You've got to be 18. So if he's convicted, he's going to go into some sort of secure centre until he's 18. And then if he's convicted, he'll do a long sentence. If I can't surmise, but I believe that with his lawyers and that he will claim to be insane. Severe mental health problems.
That may well.
I think so.
Well, it's true, and of course we had that with the Nottingham stabbings that were referred to. It was Callacane was the name, wasn't it, where he got manslaughter because of diminished response. But we're a long way from any court case here. Amanda, is there anything? I don't think we could do anything to stop people having knives, can we? Because you could go and buy them for your kitchen, and then your son or daughter can walk out with them.
I think, like I think it was Barry who said about educating your children when they were young. I remember the Dunblane shooting, and my boys were the same age, and that was horrific. And then I didn't allow toy guns in the house. I wouldn't allow it, and I used to tell them it's a weapon, it's not just a toy. So from a young age, yeah, they didn't like mum because they couldn't have the toy guns, but I had to educate them that a gun is a weapon.
Yeah.
So perhaps bringing that in at a young age and...
Yeah, I think maybe. I mean, my mum had the same rule for me, and I resented it, and I now think I don't like guns generally. Sort of seeing them. I mean, I suppose if there's anything to be thankful in our society today, it's that we don't
have easy access to guns.
That kid didn't have a gun.
And I think what you have both mentioned are your parenting and your mother parents. I don't think we often talk about how we solve these problems. What can the government do? What can the state do? We also need to have a conversation about family and how parents parent their children.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you have to hold the parents responsible to some degree, and you have to prosecute them. I don't know. That started happening in the States with school shootings. Yeah. They've started saying, you knew he had a gun, you knew he was depressed, why didn't you say anything? And some parents got prosecuted. But we know nothing about this case. That's the trouble at the moment. Susan in Lincolnshire, what do you think? Can we stop young people getting a knife?
Well, the reason I'm phoning is I am only 4'9" and I carried a knife because of bullies, because there was nothing else I could get hold of that my parents wouldn't know that I'd got. So I think we have to go a bit deeper than saying, don't carry knives. I didn't, I carried it because 4'9" and bully. We've got to go deeper.
This is probably not about people routinely carrying knives. For all we know, this lad has never carried a knife before. He's left the house, he's got a balaclava on and a hoodie. He's armed himself. This is not a regular thing where he's walking around with a knife necessarily. He's armed himself to do a violent act. And I don't, is it unfair, Susan, to say, look, the whole of our society is depending on his mum and dad to spot the violence in him?
No, it's not. Because I can speak, I carried the knife, not because I was violent, but if somebody had been, like they were the bullies, my mum wouldn't have known and I'd have done it. So how could you blame my parents?
But you're not, yeah, sure, but you're not the person we're describing here. Okay, these days, if you were found carrying that knife, you would be prosecuted as a criminal. I suspect we're thinking about the 70s here, are we, Susan?
Yeah. But I still think we've got to go, if you carry a knife, I still think there's got to be, look, why did we carry a knife? Especially if, this is my thing about being small. I would never have thought to carry a knife or that sort of thing.
Albie.
Susan, if you'd have known when you were younger that you were more likely to be harmed by the knife that you were carrying rather than it being a tool of protection, would that made you have thought twice about carrying a knife?
I'm not so sure on that, darling, because I did it because of the bullies. It was, so if the bullying had stopped, maybe I'd have stopped.
I don't know whether people get harmed by the knife they're carrying or whether if you carry a knife, you're more likely to get stabbed. That, for whatever reason, you draw yours and the other person draws theirs. Susan, thank you. Very interesting. Ray's in Kent. Hello, Ray.
Hello there, Jeremy.
I don't know whether we can stop this happening, but Amanda mentioned locking doors when you have children's events.
No, I think, as you remember, I'm a youth worker from Kent, right?
Yeah.
What is interesting is knife crime started after they shut the youth service down, right? Now, you've got to go through the mods, the rockers, the skinheads and all them. I worked with them all those years. Yeah. Why didn't we have knife crime then? It is because when the youth service closed down, young people joined gangs and knife crime became very popular, right? Now, I still run a youth club. We do check young people periodically for knife crime. We have a wand when they come in, so they know that if they come to the club any night, they could be checked.
Okay.
We are also role models for young people to try and encourage them not to carry knives and to try and prevent this to happen.
Sure.
If you take away a youth service, you haven't got that vast number of youth workers out there helping and supporting young people.
Very good point, Ray. Thank you. We'll take some more calls after the break. Tristan is in Gloucester. Hi, Tristan.
Hello, Jeremy.
So it was terrible hearing the news yesterday, wasn't it?
It was absolutely shocking. I was kind of out of the loop in the day, and then came back and sort of saw the headlines come on, and it's sickening.
Yeah. So is there anything that can be done? And it may be that you're just going to say, no, there isn't.
I think that what's really important is with frontline services, they need to speak to people with lived experience, because, I mean, the youth of the day, they don't necessarily relate to social workers, probation officers, teachers, that kind of thing. They sort of see them as authority and someone who would tell them to do those things anyway. If there's someone with lived experience who can go, do you know what, this is the consequences of what happens when you do these kind of things. It's not like you see on a video game. There's a lot more to it.
You sound like you may have had some experience yourself, have you?
I have, yeah. I've experienced as an offender, and also working on frontline services. And one of the problems would, generally with this kind of stuff is when a scheme starts and there is someone with lived experience, and almost when you're talking to young people, you can see light bulbs come on when you're speaking to them. But like most things, it comes down to funding, and this funding gets pulled, and these projects don't carry on. Yeah. But if we're going to stop knife crime, they're integral to it, really.
That sounds like you're busy there.
Yeah, that's my son.
Well, I'm glad life is good now. Thanks, Tristan, very much. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Justin, Nottingham, hi.
Hi, Jeremy. You all right, pal?
Yeah, although as we're all feeling low about this story, I must say. What do you think what should happen, if anything?
I've got a good idea.
Go on.
I cook, and there's no need for a tip on a knife. Don't get me wrong, you make them all like butter knives. They're still sharp, they cut through chicken, they cut through meat.
Like hatchets, almost, yeah, so they're square. I know, I do, listen, I've been thinking about this as well, whether knives need handles.
So just make them round, so they're not attractive to people that want to use them, they're not cool. So I know there's an influx of knives out there, but if you can just start changing it. So all the knives are like butter knives, they're still sharp.
Well, so they just got a rounded tip. I don't know. I mean, it sounds crazy because we probably have about 100 million knives in the country to try and change them all.
Got to start somewhere, aren't you?
What do you think, Albie?
I think it's an interesting idea. I think that the point that you raise is an important one, that there are many, many knives in the country with tips. But honestly, I'd never thought of the fact that you don't actually need a tip of a knife. I'm trying to think in my head when I've ever actually used the tip of a knife for something in the kitchen.
No, you don't.
I haven't.
No, you don't.
No. I haven't used it.
But also, but the quickest thing to do would be to say, if your child looks maybe disturbed, this guy seems to have bought a balaclava and he's got, maybe just get your own knives out of reach. Maybe, I don't know whether you could expect that of parents.
Well, yeah, when you think about it, when they're little, you have all these safety gadgets to stop them getting to the washing powder and things like that. Why don't we just do that until, keep a knife drawer locked and, that is, it's an option, isn't it?
A locking knife drawer. What about that, Justin? A locking knife drawer, Justin.
Yeah, it's a good idea, but it's not going to solve it. I just think you just take all the tips off from now on. I know there's a surplus of knives.
Yeah.
It don't make them so, desirable carrying a butter knife around with no tip. They're still sharp, they're still cut.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Sharon in Staffordshire, hi.
Oh, good morning. First of all, I must say my condolences go out to those people in Southport. This is so tragic. But I've heard all of your ideas, but none of those will ever work. No. I think what we need to do is bring back corporal punishment. We need to bring it back. That's the only deterrent, I think.
Do you mean capital punishment here? Talking about
capital punishment.
Death penalty,
I'm so sorry.
right.
Yes, capital punishment.
For a 17-year-old as well?
Yes. A 17-year-old does know what's going on. And we need to stop pussyfooting around these criminals all the time. We're too soft. I go to UAE all the time, and you don't get these sort of horrendous crimes there because they know what will happen if they do it.
Sharon,
They know
UAE, I don't know if we want to go that way.
but you do get them in the USA. Sharon, the death penalty is in force in the United States of America, and they have a much worse violent crime problem with guns and knives and everything than we do in Britain. So what's your evidence that capital punishment works in a Western liberal democracy, not in the Middle East?
I just think we need to have more of a deterrent, and also I think also that we need to think about charging the parents. Those two 12-year-old boys that killed that young chappie in Wolverhampton, I think, walking the street at 1:30 with machetes. Where were the parents? The parents need to be made accountable as well. We need to do something. We need to stop all this knife epidemic in England every single day. I turn the TV on and somebody's been killed, and it's just absolutely devastating. This is not the kind of country that I want to. Well, my children are growing up, but I feel sorry for my grandchildren.
Oh, no, listen, if you live in a city, you would worry about your kids at the moment. There's no question. Sharon, thank you. And it's heartfelt, I know what you say. Later.